All right. Hi, everybody. I hope that you're doing well. I'll give people a couple seconds to join. But we are very, very excited to have Chelsea Rixner with us today from Facet Wealth. I wanted to, since this is kind of new for our community to have a partnership like what we've created with Facet, I wanted to just explain a little bit about that because Chelsea, you may or may not know this, but Emily and I are financial planners too. So some people are like, wait, why are you creating a relationship with financial planners if you are a financial planner? That doesn't make any sense. But it really does, because I think that the best financial planners are ones that kind of understand their strengths and weaknesses and what they're really good at. And what I've loved, I met the Facet group at a conference called Tiburon a few years ago and then reconnected with them over the years. And what I loved about Facet is there's a big gaping hole in the market. And Chelsea, you can explain this better than me. But there's a big gaping hole in the market for people that need financial planning, but a lot of just the way the industry was made was based on, really having some sort of minimum, or like, oh, you can't get the financial planning experience without having this many dollars or paying this kind of fee. And it makes sense for a majority of the industry to be structured that way, because like with Emily and I's private practice, we only really serve like 50 families. So for us, since we only have the capacity to serve a small number of families, you have to kind of make some boundaries around the families that you serve. But that leaves out a lot of people, and we hate that. That's part of why we started the Wealth Edit, so that we could have more, give more information more freely to a broader audience. But then once we started the Wealth Edit, we received a lot of questions like, hey, I want to start with a financial planner, but I don't even really know where to start, that kind of thing, which is a awesome question. And that's what we were hoping would come out of the Wealth Edit. So of course I thought of our friends at Facet and thought, wow, wouldn't it be interesting to start a partnership with a firm that really is focused on that kind of like entry-level experience and beyond. So we are so excited to have you. Now, Emily, I'll let you introduce Chelsea, because I know y'all had a long conversation last week.
Yeah, Chelsea, we're super excited to have you. And I think that what Lauren said, I just want to echo that. The Wealth Edit was founded out of the sincere desire to make this information available to everyone and to provide sound advice, no matter what your income level is. And so we're super excited about this partnership. And thank you, Chelsea, for being willing to come on today and share a little bit about your story, which is really interesting and fun. And I think a lot of us will relate to. I certainly do. I know you took the quiz and are a Prim like me, so I'm thankful to have you on board. That's one of my goals over the fall, is to increase our Prim membership, because I think they're pretty cool. So why don't you start off telling us a little bit about yourself and some of your personal history and your professional background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm so excited to be here. I've loved getting to know the Wealth Edit online, and as you said, I am a Prim, but I am of course also a certified financial planner, and I have been working professionally as a planner for about 10 years now. I literally, though, grew up in this industry. I am a third generation CFP. So my grandfather got started in 1953 in finance, and my mom and uncle followed. And so I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, went away for college, moved to Philadelphia, where I was working with a large insurance titan out of their Philly branch. And after, cutting my teeth there, my uncle retired, and my mom called me and said, hey, your uncle's retiring. I need someone to work with, to partner with, who I can trust and don't have to train. So I worked with my mom for a few years, which was really amazing, because it's so hard to find a female mentor in this industry who has been doing this since the 70s.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that was really amazing. We eventually parted ways because she wanted to take the business into like a more laid back region, whereas I'm like, hey, I'm in my 20s. I want to like get out there and go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and was working with a national credit union in their wealth management division, and all was well and good. And then they changed the management structure, and it didn't become so much of a focus on the client first. It became a focus on the numbers. And that was something that I really didn't like about financial planning. Was it was about, hey, how much commission are you generating? How much commission are you generating? I'm like, wait, shouldn't we be talking about how many people I'm helping instead? And that's when I reached out to Facet. I found them through the CFP board website, and just immediately hit it off with them. And the reason that I went to the CFP board website is because I worked really stinking hard to get my CFP. I was working full time. I was serving on 3 boards of directors, and I was planning my wedding, all while studying for my CFP. And the CFP is a really big deal in personal finance. It is the ultimate personal financial planning designation that someone can earn. It can take anywhere from 2 to 5 years to earn this designation. Comes with regular ethics requirements and continuing education requirements. And beyond that, it also has the highest standard of ethical duty to the client. It holds all CFPs to be a fiduciary, which means that we are required and really charged with putting the client's needs above everything else. And I reached out to Facet through the CFP board website because it was really important to me that I worked with an organization that was aligned with putting the client first, no matter what. So I've been with Facet since 2018. And during that time, so I mentioned that I was planning my wedding while getting my CFP. During my time with Facet, I actually got divorced. And I said, I've got this great job that's 100% remote. Why am I staying in Scranton? So literally up until last Monday, I had been traveling the entire US. I went to like 17 cities in my Subaru with my Aussie Doodle Ivy with me. Just like would travel, went renting Airbnbs, would travel on Saturdays, meet with clients during the week. And then after a few more weeks, just pick up and go to the next Airbnb, anywhere from like 2 to 10 hours away. So I got really good at listening to podcasts. I got really good at audiobooks. And my dog got really good at being housebroken very quickly.
Yeah.
So it was a win-win all around, and it was full of adventure, and it was full of a lot of financial planning along the way for myself personally, because when you're doing something like that, it can be a little crazy, but it was such a great experience. And as of Monday, I am now living in Baltimore. I just closed on my house here. So I'm sorry that the lighting's a little weird. I need to get a lamp, but like I literally haven't had time to. But we're working on that. But so that's a lot about me and a little bit about Facet. But Facet was founded to fill that gap, Lauren and Emily, that you mentioned. That there are so many people and so many households in the US that would really benefit from sound financial advice, but they just don't know where to get started. And they don't know if they can afford it. And sometimes they just can't. And so that's where Facet came in, was to make sure that we were able to provide the highest quality financial advice at an affordable, flat annual fee for our members. So that's how we operate. And it's been this is going to sound so silly, but it's such a blessing to get to work with a company and an organization and a group of people like we have here at Facet, because our clients are so special to us, and every single person really views themselves as being client first and client facing, and takes our mission very seriously.
Yeah, I was so taken when I met your colleagues at Tiburon, because it really is a hole in the industry. Me being a CFP myself, I understand the weight and responsibility that holds in the industry. And you're right, you work your head off for it. And it doesn't get easier after
Right.
after you are a CFP. The responsibility carries on, which I just love. And what I just remember thinking like, wow, they've really created something special in the industry where everybody there who's client facing, who's serving families is a CFP, right? That's a requirement. That's
Yes,
great.
all of our lead planners are certified financial planners. We also now have para planners who work a little bit more behind the scenes, but even they're also CFPs. So that at all levels of client interaction and advice is really coming from that fiduciary who has undergone advanced training.
And can you kind of explain just at a very, like, let's say no one's ever been to a financial planner before. They don't know what to expect. They don't know that the difference between like, are you going to be picking stocks for me? What is a financial plan anyway? Just kind of explain, like, starting at the very beginning, if someone funneled through us and said, hey, we understand you have a partnership with Facet. How does the experience work? Just working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you decide to reach out to Facet to get to know us better for your individual circumstance, you'll first meet with one of our client success managers who will do some intake, ask you some background questions to then make sure that they pair you with the appropriate planner for you. We have a few female CFPs who are being dedicated just to the wealth edit. I am one of them. And so our client success managers will make sure that, you know, that we're going to mesh well together. And that's really an art that they perform there. So you'll meet your lead planner here at Facet. And, if everything sounds good, we'll get you signed on as a client. And then our next meeting is what we call a let's go meeting, or let's get organized. And that is, I joke that it's a kind of boring meeting, but it's a really important meeting because that's when we're going to get some information like what's your date of birth and, what's your family situation like. But it's also where we'll start honing in on your goals, really diving deep into, why you feel a certain way about different things. And I like to describe the entire process and then after that, we actually get into the planning, which is the hard and fast recommendations based on your goals. I like to describe this process as going on a road trip together, where I'm your GPS and you're in the driver's seat. So you tell me, or you tell your lead planner what your goals are, and we're going to map out the best course of action in order to reach them on a time frame that makes sense and is comfortable for you. So, I have some clients who they say, I want to save $10,000, and client A might say, I want to save $10,000 in 1 year. I have another client who they say, I want to save $10,000 in 5 years. That they're both great goals to have, but they both need a different set of plans to go through them. And so we're really personalizing all of this to you. So what does a financial plan entail? It entails, looking at some of the basics, which I'm sure a lot of this community is already working on, but making sure that you have a really good emergency fund in place. Taking a look at your employee benefits, making sure that we're not leaving any money on the table there, that we're getting your full matching contribution. Making sure that we're saving at a rate that's appropriate for your goals, whether it be buying a house, buying a car, saving for retirement, sending a kid or more to college, sending yourself to college, whatever it might be. And then it's also looking at things like estate planning, making sure that that's in place, because there is no person who has too little money to need an estate plan. Every person should have one. We talk about insurance planning. Again, that'll tie in with some of the employee benefits, but making sure that you have appropriate amounts of liability coverage, renter's insurance, homeowners, and also, if appropriate, things like life insurance or disability. But this will all be tailored to you. And of course, the investment piece as well. We at Facet, we do offer investment management. It's all rolled in with your annual fee. So there's like no hidden anything within that. But we also have some clients who want to just hand the investment management over to us. They don't want to think about it. They just want to know someone else is taking care of it. We have other clients who they love doing it themselves, and they'll just send me or send their lead planner their statement on a quarterly basis and just say, hey, could you review this with me? I just want to make sure that this all looks right and that I'm doing this right. So we're really just going to meet you wherever that is and tailor your plan to you.
That's amazing. And I love that it sounds like the client gets to, like, by setting their goals, then they're partnering with you, which I think so many of us like long to have that, if you're, especially as a single mom right now, like I love to know that I have somebody next to me that's helping me, reevaluate. And as a couple too, sometimes it's nice to act as a mediator and help hammer out what your goals are.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the way the billing or the fees work. Is it an annual fee?
Yeah, so it's an annual fee that you can pay either annually, monthly, quarterly. If we're doing investment management for you, you can opt to pay that out of your account, or we can pay it on a debit card, a credit card, whatever's comfortable for you. We don't lock you into this. We're not like, ADT or Comcast, where like once you sign the agreement, you're locked in forever and always, because we want to make sure that you're finding success with us. And if you're not, then, we respectfully will let you move along. But our hope is that once you get to know us, you'll love us and want to stay forever. But if that's not the case, there's no like cancellation fee or anything like that.
And how would you, what would you say are the most important ways you add value to a client? Because a lot of people think like, should I do it myself? When do I engage with a planner? Of course, our answer at the Wealth Edit is as soon as possible. I mean, we really think that financial planning is so important, and it's really difficult to have perspective on your own money. It's hard to see what your own financial situation. So where do you think y'all add a lot of value?
Yeah. So first and foremost, the fact that we're all fiduciaries, I think that's really important, because that way then the client knows that everything that we're doing is with their situation first and foremost in mind. And with that being said, we meet the client where she is. So there is no, hey, when you come to us, you need to have no debt and this much in assets. We will take you however, just as you are, and help things get better. And so I think it's the fiduciary aspect. I think that it's like completely tailored to the individual or to the couple, to the household, what have you. And I think it's that, it's not a regimen. We're not just going to move you through the motions. We're going to make sure that this is personal, tailored advice to you. And make sure that you are always in control and always comfortable with that. One of the ways that I think we add the most value is just being a truly objective sounding board. Whether it's needing help individually or, like you said, working with couples who maybe have divergent ideas about how to operate their financial resources, and being able to, without judgment and without taking a side, say, hey, I know you, and here, based on what your goals are, is the thing that makes the most sense from where I'm sitting. Because you're right, it's so hard to see it when you're in it. I mean, I myself work with my own financial planner here at Facet, because it's the same reason why, the doctor doesn't prescribe medication to their kids. Everyone benefits from having an outside perspective.
When I entered the industry, I interviewed at a lot of different firms, and one of the biggest firms that I interviewed with asked me what they had done a survey of all their clients and asked them what they found was the most beneficial thing that they did for their clients. and this kind of goes hand in hand with what you've said, it's also holding them accountable. So
Yeah.
I know that y'all do that as well. And so,
We
there's
do.
something to be said for knowing that you're going to have a regular check-in.
Yep.
And that's just human nature, but that's also another huge benefit and value that you add.
And we've all had clients say that, that, oh my gosh, I thought about like booking this one vacation that like I really don't need and that's outside my budget. And then I thought about having to then explain that to you in 3 months. And I didn't want to have to do that because I know that it's not aligned with my goals. So instead I bought a new pair of shoes.
Yeah. Well, and when it's an objective party, there's not that frustration with the, if you're not doing it because you don't want your husband to be mad at you, it's totally different than when y'all together saying, listen, we're going to have to explain this to Chelsea later. Like, let's tone it down or pick something different. So I think
I become like the angel on your shoulder.
That's right. Exactly.
Right? Like the temptation, the devil temptation is over here and I'm the angel over here saying like, don't forget about like your home down payment fund. Like,
exactly. That's amazing. All right. So, we love to talk about money at the Wealth Edit. So what would your number one financial tip be to someone who is looking to start growing their wealth?
So I would say, first and foremost, make sure you have a really solid emergency fund and put that into a high yield savings account. And when you do that, don't download the app for it onto your phone. That is money that you want to have separate and secure, but still accessible in an emergency. And the way I say that is because, especially if anyone has any sort of credit card debt, that's usually something that's been racked up because of an emergency. So if we can say, you know what, instead of having to rely on credit cards to get us through that hard time, we're going to self-fund and already be secure there. That's a really great and really important place to start from.
I love that. And, one thing that I think we really like to continue to talk about at the Wealth Edit is some people feel it's really easy because it's so easy to find your identity in money to some degree, whether it's things that you have or things that you own, things that you wear, or just for a minute tends to be like, how much do I have in my account? So there's some self-consciousness around decisions that we've made in our financial pasts. But I think one thing that I would encourage our membership to continue to realize is that this is a journey, and also it's just never too late for a do-over. I mean,
Never.
A good friend of mine said that, to me, it was mainly about, I was working through something in work that was a struggle, but it really applies here too, and that it's just never too late for a do-over. So there's no need to feel self-conscious. Every single client that Emily and I serve, I'm sure this is true with you too. They say the first meeting, they're like, I don't know if I'm doing the right things. I feel like I haven't saved enough. Those are always the first words that come out of a client's mouth. And it is such a vulnerable thing to go to someone else and share what you've accumulated. That is hard. And so anyway, I just want to encourage our members that whether it be Chelsea or, Emily or I, or somebody that you're friends with, it's just the really important thing in this process is taking the first step. I would say that taking the first step was joining the Wealth Edit, because that's really just getting comfortable with a conversation about money, which is where Emily and I felt like there was a huge gap, because we would, if someone didn't fit into our practice, we'd say, oh, go to, Sally Krawcheck at Elvest, or go to Facet Wealth. They're awesome. And people wouldn't go. And I think it's just starting to have that comfortable dialogue around money and how it relates in our lives, because every day we're making financial decisions. That's one thing that I think is just really, really important. And anyway, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but that was a little ramble.
Yeah. And the other thing is that like, as, important to our lives as money is, it is so not intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many clients who, in the first meeting or 2 or 3, they'll say, I feel so stupid that I don't know anything about this. It's like, well, you know what? I don't know anything about occupational therapy.
Yeah.
But I'm not an occupational therapist. I don't need, so like if I need help with something, like, we all have our strong suits. I'm here, your CFP, your lead planner is here to be your financial strong suit.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say, this is another thing, I'm part of this this other online community, and they were asking for referrals for financial planners. And a lot of people have been, and I'm sure you've seen this, we've seen this in our practice too, like we've been burned in the past, like, oh, I had a bad experience with this group, or my husband's college buddy, or whatever it might be. How do you kind of get past those bad experiences and really start afresh? Or maybe it's just how do you help clients understand and create their own expectations for a financial planning relationship? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And, sometimes getting through that, financial PTSD, if you will, can be difficult, but it's kind of like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym and all of a sudden you're ready to run a marathon. It takes time. You have to work at it. And, what we do in financial planning, it really is a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there are layers to that, and there's trust that builds over time. Now, if you're in your third meeting with your lead planner and you're, not feeling it, then you should reach back out to the client success manager and just say, hey, you know what? Chelsea seems really smart, but we're just not jiving. That's okay. There are other lead planners here at Facet that can absolutely help you, that might mesh better with your personality. Because again, that's like the art of this. It's not a science, it's a lot of chemistry, because that trust is so important.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point, because I know that in talking to some other women that have maybe, especially I talk to a lot of women who've lost a spouse, and they are, using the advisor that their husband used. And, a lot of times maybe the husband just used it for more investment management rather than true planning. Right. And, they say, oh, it's just like going to the dentist. I hate it. But, they're doing it. And, I've had a lot of conversations where I'm like, it can be so much better than that. I mean,
like, it can be fun.
It can be fun. And like, and I was even having that conversation before I was, in advising, because I was like, listen, like, I love my advisor. I mean, I love to call. It provides me a great amount of peace to know that I've run it by him. We're like, he's, actively involved in what I'm doing. It doesn't have to be that way. It's not a, biannual meeting. They go through some paper and then you walk out feeling scolded, or you're like
overwhelmed of like, wait, what, like whiplash.
Yeah.
Like, I just had this meeting, but I'm really not sure what happened.
Exactly. And so I think, people need to know that. And a lot of times they just don't realize that it's really designed to be something different than that. But
yeah.
So and advice, Chelsea. Thank you.
Yeah. And, and that's even the way that we operate, is we really take everything as, what's your best next step? Because we really don't want it to be this grand, overwhelming thing where we're just going to give you a 45-page document and say, good luck, see you in 6 months. Mm-hmm. We're going to break those goals into digestible pieces. You'll never get more than like 3 pieces of homework from your lead planner to really make sure that we're able to check things off the box while still making steady progress.
Mm-hmm. Well, Chelsea, thank you so much. This has been such a treat, and we are so excited to have this relationship with Facet. Y'all are creating something really special in the industry, and it's been fun to watch y'all grow. So that's been fun. Well, I'm going to just open it up to a few questions. Like I said, we don't always have questions, but always like to open it up. So you all can take your lines off mute if you have a question, or you can use the chat feature in the bottom. I started the chat just in case y'all see that.
I have a question.
Hi, Carrie.
It's no surprise. I think that I wish I could listen to this conversation like all day long. This is like one of my favorite things to talk about. But my question is, I have never worked with the CFP, and I love talking and learning about money and immersing myself in it. So there's a part of me that says, I guess my question is, what would my benefits be working with a CFP versus doing it on my own, because I'm not that foreign to it in general. Like, what are, like, maybe, I don't want to say like metrics, but like, what is my rate of return if I decide to, invest in you guys and pay you guys for this service? What should I be able to see versus what I know I can already do on my own?
Absolutely. So, Carrie, I sleep terribly at night. And one of the biggest things that I like to say we offer our clients is an increased sleepability factor. Because even though you can do it on your own, we're going to make sure that what you're doing on your own is the best option out there for you, because there are a lot of right ways to find success, but we're going to make sure that we're finding the best way for you. We're going to review your tax return, making sure that you're getting all of the appropriate deductions. For example, I had a single mom of two who she said, hey, I'm owing a lot of money this year and I don't really understand why. And I took a look through it and was able to find her $2,000 in refunds that she, didn't just realize that she was open to. So sometimes it's just, you have a toolbox already, but we're Home Depot. Mm-hmm. We've got it all. So as far as, what would be the rate of return or what would be your metric for success? Like financial planning, that's going to be very personal, but I like to say that it's more confidence. It's feeling more comfortable with your finances, more confident with it. And just knowing that you have someone who, when the PPP loans came out, we were all calling our small business owner clients saying, hey, you need to apply for this. Let's get all of the paperwork put together. So, we'll be proactive with things like that also when circumstances change that directly affect you, to make sure that you're able to be, at the start of the line when we're ready to start that race.
Yeah, I think that's a really good word. And I like to say with our private practice, I think Facet is the same way too. And even with the Wealth Edit, like whatever the fee is, we like to think that you're going to get more than that back through Absolutely. Our planning techniques, through our, whatever content you're digesting in the case of the Wealth Edit, or partnerships like what we're doing with Facet. That's the kind of way that I gauge is, over time, like if you've saved that woman $2,000 on taxes, like those are hard dollars. Right. Sometimes it's more structural over time, but I think generally speaking, there are just things out there that we see. It's really hard, like I said earlier, to have perspective on your own money because, you're seeing one perspective, which is yours. But what we have the benefit of seeing is like a lot of different people's situations. So you start to see, I'm sure you see this too, but like you start to see patterns and you realize that like, oh, these 5 clients, they might not be going through the same thing at the same time. But like, I think that this arrow in my quiver that I used over here will also work on over here.
Absolutely. And I mean, just another example, I'm sure I'm sure people know basics about life insurance. And I have 3 clients who all came to me with a whole life insurance policy. And all 3 of them said, I don't think I need this. And it's like, well, let's look at that. Let's look at what your needs are. Let's look at what makes sense. And by being able to, look at all of this in an, objective manner, I was able to say, actually, hey, client number 1, you should actually really keep this. And here's how we're going to use that over the next 20 years. Client number 2, you should also really keep this because of ABC reasons. And client number 3, you're right. We don't need this. We're going to surrender this. We're going to take the cash value out and we're just going to do like a paid up 20-year term insurance and call it a day and be, save ourselves about $150 a month by doing it that way. So, again, it's really going to be tailored and individualized instead of more general information. It's kind of like WebMD versus going to the doctor.
Mm-hmm. That's a good word.
Great.
Any other questions? All right. Well, Chelsea, this has been a pleasure, and we'd love to have you back. Like I said, or I think Chelsea, you might have said this. Facet has dedicated 3 amazing women to be planners for our group. And so, if you want to engage with Facet, the best way is just to send us an email or through Instagram private a direct message so that we know you're interested, and we can connect you with the Facet team. They will get you started with their planners in the interview process and make sure that you have a successful experience with them. And we hope you do. We have a high confidence that you will. So, anyway, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure, and we can't wait to have you back again.
Thank you both
Thank
so
you,
much. This
Chelsea.
was so much fun. Have a wonderful day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.